your neighborhoods,
Right.
dripping it on your streets, on your yards and everything else to get to the dump. And that's the systemic racism that people don't understand. They don't think about. They may think, oh, I'm a good person. I'm not a racist, but we're a racist society. I mean, we're just.
And until you said that, Rick, he said something that made sense. The neighborhood I grew up in, we had a dump. Yes. We used to go play on the dump.
Yes. Sure.
We had a railroad track. I remember the train coming through our neighborhood, and every now and then the wino, that's what they used to call drunks, would get his leg cut off. And we had a sewer pipe coming through our neighborhood, also dumping into the Ashley River. So we're looking at all three of those things that was in our neighborhood that wasn't in other neighborhoods, and the way certain, I don't know all the system, but where certain drainage systems were. When it flooded in Charleston, a lot of the drainage system came through our neighborhood also.
So what I'm hearing with the system, and it also is gonna, having the white privilege, it's also gonna inflict some health concerns. Just because of the system, some health concerns, economically.
Again, you look at minority communities and where they're located, and you look at where shopping centers are located, where hospitals are located, where doctors' offices are located. It's very difficult for many people of color to get to those areas if they take buses or if they take cabs or whatever. Okay. It's a long trip. It's costly, if they don't own a car or whatever. Okay. So yeah, I mean, it's.
So I mean, I'm thinking out loud. So when I say the word white male privilege, I'm sure there's some white men say, yeah, I may be privileged in certain ways, but that doesn't make me a racist. That doesn't, I mean, I may be privileged, I may get certain things that's privy to me, but that don't make me a racist.
I think that's very true. I think it's very true. I think it's a trigger word for a lot of white people. And in many ways, I think they're probably right. They may not be racist. They may not be bigoted. I mean, define racism and bigotry. Is racism where we have biases and thoughts and so on and so forth that our culture has imposed on us, and bigotry is where we exercise power over somebody else. I don't, so, get the definitions and terminology however you want to put it, but it's a defensive mechanism for people, and we've got to get beyond. Again, somebody's saying the N-word, somebody's saying white privilege. Understanding, yes, we do have privilege, and it's not a negative. What we would like to have is be able to have black privilege and brown privilege. Y'all have the same opportunities that we've had. That equality. I mean, that's what we talk about. That's equal. And that's the gap. Narrow the gap. I mean, because if the gap keeps widening, that rubber band can only stretch so far, and then it's going to snap.
Okay. And that kind of leads me to my next question is, what are some of the things that we can do to start narrowing that gap? I mean, from that gap, is it the education? Is it education alone? I know that's not going to change the system, but I mean, what are some of the things that we can do?
Well, one thing that I would say, Rick, I think that understanding finances, understanding entrepreneurism, understanding how things work, not how we think things work. And I think that's one of the beautiful aspects of your program is the fact that we're talking about issues and situations that a lot of folks don't really understand, that wouldn't even listen to if it wasn't because of this show. So when you start talking about investment and you start talking about mergers and acquisitions, and people are like, what are you talking about? But you have to understand, because that's where the real wealth is. The real wealth is at such a higher level. We're not talking about rich, we're talking about wealthy. But also, how do you get to the point? How do we build systems in place so that when my brother get out of prison, then it's a way for him to earn a living, if he chooses to, without going back to the things that put him in prison? How do we build a system that, understanding that we have to plant trees that we know without a shadow of a doubt we will never sit under and enjoy a shade? Or how do we build bridges? Because we have to, and it's not that hard. It's not that hard. Years ago, I was privileged to start a little organization, grew up to $100 million. Welfare Reform Liaison Project, and we helped so many people because it was a hand up, not a handout. In a lot of cases, not always, but a lot of cases, folks see the social safety nets as like turning into a hammock. A hammock is usually when you relaxing, martini, chilling and relaxing. Well, the social safety net is not a place to relax. That's a place that you climb, and if you fall, if you slip, if you fail, you're gonna fall and you're gonna be caught. Then you get up and climb again. You don't sit there.
Okay.
You don't sit on the safety net. You can't sit on the safety net because
Yes,
you're
sir.
using something that's not meant to be used. And that's the problem.
That's the problem.
Wow. That's strong.
That's strong.
Like the young folks say, fact.
Facts. So okay, go ahead.
I agree
Something
with everything you're saying from an economic and entrepreneurship, from a personal level. It's you know, how do you deal with that? Where do you go with that? 6 years ago, when Trayvon Martin was killed, it bothered me. And I started a social experiment. If people of color didn't work at my company, and if they didn't dance at the dance studio, I didn't interact with them.
Wow.
And so I started an experiment where randomly I would walk up to people of color and say, we fear what we don't know one another. My name is David Nickel, and I offered him my hand as a handshake. I called it a simple handshake.
Okay.
I had no illusions that it was going to fix any problems. It wasn't a grand plan or anything like that. I fully expected to get my head knocked off at one point, but I continue it to this day. And the thing that I keep hearing from people is this is a good thing. And this dialogue needs to continue. And so, you know, those are the, yes, education needs to happen, business needs to happen, but we don't know each other, and I think that that is a real issue.
I've had experience that, and I've had young men who I've mentored over the years. They're driving certain parts of town, and the police have pulled them over, and they called me on the phone and said, "Oh, just want to let you know I just got pulled over. I got this phone on speaker." And I can hear the conversation that the officer is having with the young black male. It's totally different than what you would think. But that's something that I experienced via the phone. But let me tell you something I experienced just myself. I came from public housing, poor, black, 60s, you know, disabled mom, all the things, and she pulled us through education, went to school, got a good job, did everything folks said we should do. Successful, good looking, all that kind of good stuff. So you live on one side of town, right? Then you move to another side of town, the big house out in the suburbs, everything else. Now your kids go to high school, and they're driving home from working at a fast food joint late at night, and they get pulled over. And the same now is not the city police officer, is county sheriff, asking them the question, "What are you doing in this neighborhood?" "Well, I live here, sir." "Well, give me proof that you live here." I had one instance, my sons came home from college, and they were in the front yard around 1 o'clock getting ready to go to cookout. And, you know, we live in a large house, and 1 o'clock in the morning, you have 4 or 5 cars in the yard. Well, you know, they're home for college, Christmas break, so me and the wife went on the bed.
Right.
So later on, my son comes and just busts in the door. Boom, 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 Daddy, you got to get down here. Come down there, what happened? You got 2 police officers in the front yard, detaining my nephew who lives with us, and my oldest son out there arguing with the police on what's the problem. And the police is saying, the sheriff is saying, "Listen, we have some suspicious activities here." Now you tell your kids, this is your house, this is safe. You tell yourself, I grew up in the projects. If I could work hard, and I could go to school, and I could do all those things, I could save my money, and I could buy the starter home, then I build a nice house in a nice neighborhood, everything's gonna be okay, because I don't want my children to grow up the way I grew up. But when you get there, what you did, you didn't realize when you packed everything else, you packed your black skin with you. So you took your black skin with you in this new neighborhood, so now all of a sudden we fear what we don't know, and they're looking at you now like, what's wrong with you? So I can't put on a hoodie and go running through my neighborhood at 6 o'clock in the morning going on a job. Because if I go on a jog at 6 o'clock in the morning and my neighborhood where it's dark, then it's going to be somebody, one of my good neighbors, going to call the police, the sheriff, and say it's a large, dark-skinned black man with a hoodie running through our neighborhood.
Yeah.
What's that going to get me? I live there. I've been there before a lot of them moved in the doggone place, Rick.
Yeah.
What's that going to get me?
That's going to get you the opportunity to have to prove who you are.
If I get a chance. You said if I get an opportunity. Trayvon didn't get an opportunity.
Yeah, he didn't.
Yeah.
And that,
Who else did? They didn't get an opportunity. This thing is serious, man.
and Dylan Roof got the opportunity.
He did.
You and I had the privilege of seeing the movie Emmanuel
Yes.
last month.
Yes.
And one of the points made in that movie was Dylan Roof got pulled over and they took him to get a cheeseburger. Now, I don't want him getting beaten up or shot
Right.
like they do many black folk.
Right.
We don't.
I just want the police to stop shooting black folk and take them to get a cheeseburger. Presumed innocent
You're right.
until proven
You're
guilty.
right. You're right.
And so, again, how do we get to that point? I mean, I don't want all of a sudden the police to start shooting white folk.
No, we don't. That's not what we want.
I don't
No.
want them to keep shooting black people.
I want them to stop.
We don't want to shoot nobody.
No.
Yes.
I mean,
Black,
and most-
brown,
and-
orange,
and most-
nobody.
and I want the police to stop being shot.
Right,
I
that's
mean,
a fair
it goes
point.
both ways.
Talk a little bit about that, because that's fair. Because I don't want to come across as the angry, good-looking, angry black guy. No, it's not anger, it's passion. Because the passion comes from the fact that, listen, these are my babies, these are my children. And if I came downstairs and my son is laying in his front yard with blood in the front yard, come on, man. It was just a situation where, as a black man in Texas, with in his own apartment,
Well,
he was
you
in
know,
his own apartment.
we got Black Lives Matter, we got Blue Lives Matter, and we keep fighting one another. And the real issue is that we're not the enemy. The 1% that hold all the power and all the money, they're the enemy. Because they're going to do whatever, I mean whatever it takes to hold on to that power. I'm not going to get into politics right now. That might be for a later discussion.
Okay.
You can put that on the list.
We'll mark that down. Yeah.
We might get there,
Yeah.
but they'll do anything to hold up power. So the police, the community, everybody else, we're all there. I mean, we're out there working, trying to make a living and support our families. We're not the enemy to one another.
Wow.
We're not. We need to coalesce. We need to band together.
So that brings me to our next point. Love amongst men. I mean, you're saying we need to get together. We need to band together.
Yeah.
And I agree. True, we do. But how do we get there? I mean, with so much envy and hate and jealousy out here, how do we get there? How do we get there? Love amongst men. How can we get there as one? You know, no matter what color our skin is,
Yeah.
we just all get there to love one another. You know what I mean? And
I'm gonna let the privileged, good-looking white guy handle that first. Then I'm coming behind
the
him.
good-looking white guy.
All right.
We gonna go to good-looking.
I had the honor and privilege of, in the early 70s, for about 7 years, I helped form a nonprofit organization in a commune, and we lived together. And it was a bunch of young people, and our goal was to change the world.
Okay.
And now my goal is to have the world not change me. And they're one and the same. One is somewhat naive, and one is somewhat jaded.
Change the world. Okay.
Yeah, but there were a lot of good men in that organization, and I have the honor and privilege of continuing to meet with 6 of those guys twice every year, and we've been doing that for 50 years. And we sign our emails, love David, love Jeff, love Sandy, whatever, and we hug. And we display affection openly, and I think that's an incredibly important gesture. And I can remember to this day, I was 18 years old, I was a freshman in college, and it was the first time I remember my dad saying that he loved me. Might not have been the first time,
Right.
but it was the first time I remember it. And that just had such an enormous impact on me. So my kids, every day I tell them I love them. They're 40 and 45. You know, every day I tell them I love them. When I hug them, I kiss them. And I think men demonstrating that, and I don't know what it's like in the black community. Again, this is somewhat a stereotypical white perspective. I have seen the white community, I mean the black community, as a fairly matriarchal society dominated by the grandmother, the mother, and stuff, and that the father's often absent, and so there's a lack of fatherly love, and that has always concerned me and bothered me. I see that changing, obviously, sitting here with you two gentlemen. But you know, and I'm hopeful the Million Man March and stuff, and the challenge that was put forth there. Yeah, I think it's important that we express genuine affection for one another, and that we find ways to do that between men and women and men and men.
Before I throw it over to you, Odell, I'm going to throw a little quick story I just recently experienced myself. When you say, you know, you don't know how it is in the black community, I think we're growing. I think we're evolving too. Just recently, I had a guy who was coming into the parking lot. He was going into one of the businesses next door. And I just greeted him outside on the parking lot, and you know, we chopped it up for a minute. And about the time he was leaving, he was like, "I love you, brother." I said, "I love you too." But it just you know, I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready. He said, "I love you." So it floored me a little bit. Now this same gentleman, about a week later, on the other side of town, I ran into him again, and I knew it was him because he got a convertible BMW top down. And I was passing him on the street, and we was on the little side road, so we was able to pull out. Hey, you know, we just pulled over, and he said it again. He said, "I know you, I remember you, I love you." You know, we just exchanged like that. So that's just a little story that just kind of came to me.
Interesting.
But I think it's out here. I think it's real. I think we, for a good amount of us, we want to. Some of us don't know how to. We need to be taught how to love each other. We need to be taught how to respect each other, especially in the black community, because it's been such a challenge for my generation, and I'm sure for Odell's generation before. You know, we're trying to all gain some ground out here, so it's such a challenge. You know, it's like every man for himself, and every time somebody gets a little bit further, I might grab a hold of him just to pull up, so that it's not always as encouraging as it may sound. But just wanted to throw that out there.
You know, I'm kind of guarded because of the fact that, again, single mom, it was there, especially coming from men, because when you say, "Odell, I love you," in my mind, what does that mean? You know, I have to process that. And again, I made a point in my life. I said, "Okay, God, if you allow me to become a man, I will treat my children, especially if I have a boy, I treat my son the way I wish my father would have treated me." So the whole thing of hugging and kissing and loving and supporting from the time they were this knee high, going to elementary schools, going to the practices, going down to the schools, just showing them that support, that's always been a part of my DNA. It's always been. Now, I have individuals in my life that I've mentored. One young man I'm so proud of, Ishmael Henson, and so many other more who we love each other. However, you have to understand that when you come to someone and say you love them, you don't know, I don't know what that means. Meaning that, and I'm not homophobe or nothing like that. However, I just want to make sure that love is a strong word for me. Love is not one of them words, "Hey, what's up, brah?" Nah. If you say you love, that's different. You know, I love my wife. I love her to the point of, even after I die, the life insurance policy is such that she'll be taken care of even after I'm gone. I love my children. The life insurance policy is such. But more than the life insurance policy, what I demonstrated while I was here, that will live on. My grandfather, who taught me so many things, even when he's dead and gone, a lot of that is still inside of me. Now, if you ask the question, "Odell, how's your relationship with your father?" I would say, "Not well." You would say, "Well, why don't you make it well?" I would say, "Well, it's not that important to me." I know, but there's no need to sit here and lie.
Right.
It's not that important to me because I have to move on because I think a lot of people get caught and trapped, stuck in the wanting something what they wish it's been. First people say, well, when I was a child, this happened to me, and I'm not trying to downplay that, but I get it, but that's 99 years ago, and for some people, they need to go back and get all that fixed. But for some of us, we're good.
Life's short.
We're good, exactly. So why run behind somebody? Why try to get something that's not there? Or you didn't even know the person's capacity to love. So that's kind of how I deal with it. And when I mentor and counsel people, that's how I deal with it. Because a lot of people will say, this happened to me as a child, that happened to me as a child. And I know some therapists will say, Odell, you're so wrong. All that has factors dealing with it. I agree. But I know you have to keep living. You have to keep living. Battered, bruised, scarred, but you have to keep living. And especially as a black man, you've got to keep going, bro. You have to. You have to. That's all I got. I've been looking good, the best looking guy up here. White, light skin, black, don't crack.
Dark skin privilege.
Dark skin privilege. There you go. Dark skin privilege. There you go. There you go.
I don't know. It don't crack. All right. Well, we covered a lot of things.
Yes, yes.
We covered some good stuff. We covered some real good things. Is anything that, as you take it all in, our conversation here today, that you want to leave the viewers with? Anything? I'll let whoever want to go first. You might want to.
Again, I'm repeating myself, but talking like this is important. And we've got to just share these thoughts, these emotions, these ideas, get to know one another, get to know our backgrounds. I've learned something new about you today, several things actually, and that helps inform me of who you are, and where you're coming from, and how to respond to you as a friend, and how to give love to you.
And I accept that.
Yeah.
I accept that because I know what that means coming from him.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm not going to do the tutu and dance with him and all that kind of stuff, but it's okay. It's okay.
Okay.
But it's something I'll comment on that.
Okay.
It's hard to hate up close. What I mean by that is that now that I know you and I know Dave and all this kind of stuff, it's like, no, that's Dave. You can't talk about Dave because now it's not the white guy. It's not the privileged white guy. That's my man Dave. That's Dave. And when you start looking at it from that perspective, we find that we have a lot of common ground. No, we don't agree on everything, but like a Venn diagram, those three circles is some things we do agree on. So let's not act like we don't agree on anything, because it's more than just white, it's more than just black, it's more than just gay, it's more than just straight, it's more than just male, it's more than just female, it's more than just Christian and being Jewish, or believing anything. Once you get to know somebody, and that's why this show is so important, Rick, and that's why you have to just keep pushing, because it's entertaining, but it's educational. In a lot of cases, somebody's gonna come in here, somebody's gonna walk through that door and say, hey man, I saw your show and you had that old crazy preacher on there talking about black ass and all this kind of stuff. I didn't know preachers talk like that. And you let him know preachers don't talk like that, but that crazy one did.
Yeah.
And he's willing to talk to him.
Yeah.
But that's okay. That's okay. Because I think ASS is in the Bible, last time I checked, and Jesus turned water into wine. It's in there too. So let's not get so spiritual. And that's what the church, sometimes the church gets so spiritual that they're no earthly good, man. Folk don't want to come to church because you acting.
Don't get me started.
Yeah, I want to get you started. But I'm just saying, sometimes as churches, we as preachers, we come across the wrong way.
Well, that's definitely got to be another show.
Yeah, that is.
Because if we get started on that, we're going to be here another 45 minutes.
Yeah.
And I love preachers. I'm a preacher. I love church. I love church folk. Don't get me wrong. But I just said sometimes you ask somebody, hey man, how you doing today? Oh, bless the Lord. Pray. Man, I didn't ask you all that. I get that. I'm saying, how you doing, man? How you doing?
Yeah, my undergraduate degree's in biblical studies. I
Okay.
came
Okay.
so close to being a minister. Then I realized that I was so far left, and there was no church was ever going to have me and accept me. And so I just decided I better get my way. So we started a nonprofit organization, Communion. We started about 8 different businesses, and so on and so forth. But yes, so.
But you say 8 different businesses, that's entrepreneurism.
It is. It was.
And it still is.
It
You
is.
went from 8 different businesses to becoming the president and CEO of a multi-million-dollar business. So part of the solution is young folk coming here talking to David also.
He went from that to sitting on, let's chop it up.
Hey, right here. Let's make it real.
And I like what you said. It's hard to hate up close.
Yeah.
It's hard.
It's
Once you know
hard to
somebody,
hate up close.
Yeah.
so you're gonna sign
That one rings home. That rings your bell. You know, if that one don't ring your bell, maybe your bell is broken. I don't know.
Yeah, there's a crack
That
in it
one.
somewhere.
Yeah, that's a good one.
All right.
Well, you know, the Liberty Bell has a crack in it,
I know it does.
and we celebrate that crack.
We'll follow up later on about that other show.
There you go.
We're gonna need another 45 minutes for that. So we want to thank everybody for joining us for Let's Chop It Up. Again, I'd like to thank Odell Cleveland and Dave Nickel, our guests. We really enjoyed it. I hope it was informative. I hope we learned a lot, and it's hard to hate up close. Thanks, everybody. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate it. Again, we would like to thank our guests, David Nickel and Odell Cleveland, for coming to the show to have the tough conversation about white male privilege. As you can see, we did not have enough time allotted for the show, but as you can join us as we continue to chop it up next week. And also you can follow us on Instagram at Let's Chop It Up Show.